The following is a special presentation on AZTV 7.
Welcome to Before You Vote. I'm Mike Broomhead. This AZTV special program is here to help you, the voter, understand the 2022 midterm election. We'll be talking with candidates and data analysts to give you insight into who and what is on the ballot. Today, it's all about the governor's race. While we were supposed to be talking about a debate turned interview with Kari Lake, it was canceled. In just a minute, Executive Director of the Arizona Citizens Clean Election Commission, Tom Collins, will be back. He's going to talk about what happened with the Kari Lake interview and where Clean Elections Commission will go from here. Plus, political strategists Chuck Coughlin and Chad Campbell are here talking about their thoughts on the interview being canceled and what candidates need to do going forward. We're bringing you all of the information you need to know next, right here in 60 seconds. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Joining us right now, Executive Director of the Citizens Clean Election Commission, Tom Collins. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Didn't expect we'd be having this conversation, but let's go over what happened with the cancellation of the debate and then you pulling the interview with Kari Lake. How'd that happen and why?
Okay, so the Clean Elections Commission has hosted by statute, voted by the people, these debates for 20 years. And for 20 years, we've had participation from both major party gubernatorial candidates from 2002 really until this year. So we began the process of getting ready for the general election gubernatorial debate. Secretary Hobbs did not want to do that debate. She proposed doing this dual interview thing. We had a full public hearing at the commission, public hearing. Anybody can go watch it on YouTube. The commission voted against that. And the commission voted against that for two reasons. Number one, the statute calls for a debate. And number two, because the basis for the request really had to do with disagreements with the other candidate, which is a First Amendment, and we're a government agency. You can't just make a decision based on one person's viewpoint. That's not how it works. So that's where we were. Now, under our rules, as a sort of a mild incentive to debate, we offer this 30-minute Q&A if one person chooses not to attend. And that's been what we've done. We did it in this very election cycle in the Democratic gubernatorial debate when Secretary Hobbs did not attend and Marco Lopez, the former mayor of Nogales, did a 30-minute Q&A with Arizona PBS. So that was supposed to have happened on the 12th. With Kari Lake, who's the Republican candidate for governor. That morning, unbeknownst to us, we got a call from a reporter asking how they attend the Katie Hobbs 30-minute Q&A, and were we sponsoring it? And obviously we were not, and we had no information about that. And so we worked diligently to get information from ASU and the Cronkite School there that administrates PBS on behalf of the Arizona Board of Regents. They didn't respond to us throughout the afternoon. And so what the problem was with that is our job is to be a nonpartisan election board that operates under the laws and rules the voters passed. And we were not in a position where we could, basically, we knew what we were walking into. We had another candidate that we were not interviewing announced that this was happening, unbeknownst to us, and we couldn't get any information from our partners at ASU. And so we had to make a decision about whether or not we would somehow force another candidate to go through with something, and we also need to know how we would explain to voters what was going on. We couldn't do either of those things, and so I made the decision that we had to cancel our involvement with the event that was set for the 12th, and so we did, because we were not in a position where we understood what was happening, we understood why Arizona State University had this involvement with the other candidate, the timing of their announcement. We had no information, and we had complete radio silence from them. And in that situation, my obligation to my board, to the voters, and frankly to the other candidates is to be able to say we have a fair, transparent process. I couldn't do it, and I had to make a decision.
Have you had any conversations thus as of now with ASU or with Cronkite?
We had a brief conversation with the production folks at Arizona PBS, who we have a long-standing relationship with. We have not had a single substantive conversation with anyone from Cronkite or the Arizona State University administration.
Was there any explanation as to why you weren't notified ahead of time and why you had to find out from a reporter?
No.
So let's talk about who at ASU made this decision.
Sure.
How far up, I mean, is this at Cronkite? Does it go to Dr. Crow's office? Where does it go?
I mean, we really don't know. And at the end of the day, it's probably not too important to clean elections, because our goal here is to make sure we make good on our statutory obligation to provide a debate or a 30-minute Q&A, and we're working to make that happen right now. We want to be fair to Kari Lake, and we want to continue to be fair, as we have been, to Secretary Hobbs. However, Michael Crow gave an interview to an organization called the Arizona Agenda. It's a newsletter by two longtime Capitol reporters, and he said that when clean elections did not produce a debate, somehow, as if we don't have a long-standing involvement with Arizona State, he indicated that to people that they should proceed to try to get something together for Secretary Hobbs. He said that, and my response to that was simply that, look, Michael Crow does not simply suggest things. He's the president of Arizona State University. He's the second most powerful man in Arizona after Doug Ducey, the governor. So that story in the Arizona Agenda, raised some questions, and to our point, it illustrated why we did make the right decision, because we can't account for what Dr. Crow has said. His selective approach to this, dealing with one specific candidate in one specific office, despite the fact that we have successfully had debates for the U.S. Senate, the Arizona Secretary of State, the Arizona Attorney General's office, all with controversial candidates, all handled with Arizona PBS with no problem. Somehow this one was different. We still don't know why, but we know that Dr. Crow knew about it.
Well, I appreciate the time, because more than anything else, the backstory matters to people. We've all seen what's in front of the cameras with the candidates, what they're saying.
Sure.
But in the end, I think the voters in Arizona want to make sure you're meeting your statutory obligations. And I appreciate the clarification and you coming back and telling the story.
Oh, absolutely. And, we want to make sure that we can put something on for the voters. And, we hope that all news organizations interview all the candidates all the time.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure to have you down here, and thanks for the clarification. All right, I hope that clears some of this up for you and the controversy and what's happened behind the scenes. As always, we want you to be informed voters, and this has been a big piece of that puzzle. We'll be back here on Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Joining me right now from High Ground is Chuck Coughlin, and from Lumen Strategies, Chad Campbell. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, we thought we were going to be talking about an interview that Kari Lake did on PBS that didn't happen. Initially, before we watch any of this, impressions of what happened and how this fallout happened when PBS said they're going to interview candidates separately. Any opinions when you saw what happened, either of you?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
My thought was, well, this is typical of a debate format with candidates sparring as this debate, Lollapalooza has gone on. And then, now you have this very interesting tangle with clean elections and KAET. And I'm wondering what happened there.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck, and I think, this is part of the ongoing circus that unfortunately this whole issue has become. Not debating is pretty common, or it happens a lot. Candidates don't debate. I think that's been kind of taken over, though, by the format now, these really political conversations that honestly people outside the bubble probably don't care about, quite frankly.
Well, and Lake's been feeding it.
Yeah,
As she should.
Exactly right.
I mean, she's been using this narrative to belittle her opponent.
Because I don't think she wants to talk about the issues, let's be honest. So she's trying to create...
her issues.
Well, other than her issues, yeah. So she wants to create some chaos, and she's doing a good job of it. I'm going to give her credit on that part.
So I want you to, let's start there then, or let's go there. Let's watch Kari Lake at a press conference when this whole thing came out, and I want to get your opinion about what she had to say. Let's go to it.
Imagine next go around if the Democrats realize, wow, we don't have to sit on the debate stage with the Republicans anymore. If they don't have to sit on the debate stage with the Republicans, if they can just stomp their feet and demand a safe space, then they'll get their own time. Then PBS will capitulate and give them their own time, and we'll never have a debate system again.
All right, so let me get first of all, let's take the word Democrat out of there for a moment. Let's put the word candidate in there.
Yeah.
Does she have a point?
I don't think so. I mean, ultimately, I kind of mentioned this a minute ago. You know, candidates sometimes choose not to debate, right? If they think they have the lead, they don't debate, things like that. I mean, ultimately, though, let's put it this way. If Katie Hobbs loses this cycle, right, I think the next Democrat will probably debate. So it would kind of make Kerry's point irrelevant. I think the bigger issue, and I'll let Chuck talk about this too, but I think the bigger issue is PBS's decision in of itself. I don't think this has any kind of long-standing implications for debates in general, though.
No, it's a strategic decision on any campaign's part.
Yeah.
I think we were talking earlier, Ducey didn't debate his primary opponent at one point. You know, I've been a part of a lot of campaigns where strategically, if you think you have the lead, I'm not going to debate. And so I'm not going to expose my candidate. We talked about Mark Kelly and that. Mark actually did that even though he's in the lead. I give him credit for that. That's a civic participation thing. He didn't have to do that, but he did it. And so, you know, if it comes down to a campaign decision.
But as far as the relationship with PBS and with clean elections, if you're clean elections and you say to a candidate, here's what's happening, we're offering you a debate, and if you say no, then your opponent's going to get free airtime, and they choose not to do it, and then they're given the airtime, do they have a right to feel like their legs were cut out from under them by PBS?
Yeah, that may be a different conversation. You know, I don't know the arrangement exactly. I'm not an attorney between PBS and clean elections. But that could be a problem for PBS. And the way they went about this was probably problematic. They probably have to rethink this relationship moving forward and make sure, to your point, that if you're going to commit to something, you're going to stick with it. Because I do agree with you. If somebody doesn't want to debate, great, but then you shouldn't be able to give any candidate, regardless, Dem, Republican, whatever, kind of a backdoor way to get that access.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This will change. And the Clean Elections Commission from here on out will have a codicil in the contract that says if you're our debate partner, you will follow our rules, because that was obviously not followed. The Channel 8, rightly so, maybe, I want to have an audience. You know, if I can get her, I'm going to go get her, that meaning Hobbs, and give her airtime. Why not? Because you'll probably get a good audience with it. But if they've agreed to be the official sponsor of the clean elections debate, that's a problem.
So do either one of you, because you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, do either one of you think that this could be, at least in the short term, damaging to PBS in the way they handled it?
Yeah. There's a cleanup on aisle 3.
Okay.
That needs to happen here. They need to go, and they need to make amends with the Clean Elections Commission. Because if I'm the Clean Elections Commission, I'm going to look at, you know, maybe AZTV next time is my partner. I'm going to go look.
Not a bad idea,
right?
by the way.
Hey, I'm not. I just said you didn't say that. I said that. I would look at a different alternative if my legs are going to get cut out from under me.
Because behind the scenes, you guys are in this profession, as we talked about earlier. I said off the air before we started, you guys are training the fighters. We just are commentating and watching the fight. If you think that someone's going to go behind your back, you're going to be a lot less likely to deal with them down the road. Wouldn't that be right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true for, I think, anything in life, right? And I think, you know, to their credit, I think that PBS and all of their formatting, I mean, their program formats and their host, Ted Simons, I mean, they have a very sterling reputation.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that.
They're very unbiased. Yep. They go right down the middle. And so I think this is probably more of an error in process than anything else. I think it will be corrected, but to Chuck's point, I think it is going to have to be corrected.
Well, and it opens up this lane for Kerry to criticize him, right?
Yeah.
ASU, the higher education, there's a conspiracy behind this. This is that left-leaning program, you know, which it's public television. You're always going to get some criticism there that it's a little bit more left-leaning, that it's older demographic. And so she's going to light up on that because it's probably feeding her voters anxiety and anger. So
then the last question on this is then, do you think, as far as the campaigns go, that this is helpful to either side?
I think anybody was moved by the lack of a debate 2 or 3 weeks ago, this has not changed their position. So I think this is all fodder for the people in the bubble right now, is my guess.
No, I don't think so. I think the Hobbs campaign didn't handle this issue right from the get-go. I mean, you and I were talking, you know, all you got to say is, I'm not going to debate. She doesn't believe in the outcome of the election. She wants to criminalize abortion. She wants to take away your right to vote. I'm done. That's all you need to know. But they didn't make that, and they jerked around with this stylistic, and maybe we can get a format we like, and it has created this own narrative, which Lake has taken advantage of.
All right, we got a little bit more time with these guys. In a moment, what we're going to talk about is the rallies that happened. One for Hobbs, one for Lake, tone of those, and how the outcome went. All that's coming up in just a moment. Stick around. Coming up, we're recapping the governor's race thus far, plus find out what the candidates need to do going forward. Our analysis of the governor's race continues next on Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Let's talk about what's happened in the past week in the campaigns. There were two big rallies. One was at a park for Katie Hobbs. The other was in Mesa with former President Trump. Tone of the rallies, did you catch any of those? What did you think of those two rallies? Were they helpful to either candidate?
Well, I'm clearly the Trump rally really enthuses Lake's base. So it creates a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of intention around it. The flip side of that, though, is that Trump is the highest, most effective Democratic turnout machine. When you roll him out, Democrats seem to respond to that. You know, the Hobbs campaign is, I essentially think they're just playing a reaction game to what Lake's doing. And so they have a little park rally that's very nice and very cheery, and everybody's nice, and you know, they go on. I don't really think it penetrates the larger audience out there, though.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Trump rally, it's a rally for the base, right? That's what Trump does. But, you know, to Chuck's point, it's a flashpoint for Democrats and for moderate independents and for the never Trumper Republicans, too. You know, I think the biggest difference, though, that you see at these rallies, if you go to a Trump rally, I can promise you, there's not a Democrat at that rally, right? If you go to the Katie Hobbs event, there's Republicans there. And though it may not be a big rally that gets a lot of earned media and gets out to the broader kind of, you know, universe, to your point, Chuck, it still demonstrates that she does have bipartisan support, which I think will be critical in November. And quite frankly, Kerry doesn't have that. She has her base and a subset of independents, but she's not getting crossover Democratic votes.
So that was going to be the next question. Has either candidate stood out to you as doing a good job reaching those undecided independents? Is one candidate doing better than the other at reaching them?
No.
No. That's the question.
Each is doing a terrible job of it.
Maybe in a different way.
Yeah, it's not being done well. I mean, there's four issues at play here. If you're a Republican, you want to talk about the economy and inflation and immigration. That's what you want your attention on. If you're a Democrat, you want it on reproductive rights and election denialism and threats to democracy. And so there are two competing narratives out there. The giant question is, because these people are unaffiliated voters, what do they care about? And I don't think anybody really knows that answer. We're not going to really know it until Election Day, when we see the returns start coming back in and seeing how these people react to the cornucopia, those four issues, the mosaic of issues that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the myth out there is that the independent voter, like, the independent voters aren't a monolithic block of voters. Right. You have right-leaning independent voters, left-leaning, you know, centrist, and so you have to kind of tailor your messaging to all of those folks. So obviously, Kerry's going to be going after those right-leaning, you know, votes. The Lake campaign's going to focus on that. You know, the Katie Hobbs campaign's going to focus on the left-leaning. It's those centrist ones that matter, and I think it's going to be competing issues between inflation and abortion. That's going to be the battlefield.
I think to Chad's point, though, what you will end up seeing from the Hobbs campaign is Republicans. You'll see Republicans. Exactly. I think they're going to put some airtime underneath Republican messaging. I'm a Republican. I'm voting for Katie Hobbs because of X.
Well, you got the Mesa mayor.
Right. The Mesa mayor's been out there. He's already been ridiculed by it, right? He's been excommunicated. But you'll see more of that. And so messaging-wise, I think the Hobbs campaign is at least trying to electronically portray it.
Well, and you just had Heather Carter switch her party affiliation to independent. And again, Heather Carter may have lost her primary to Nancy Bartow, but she still got thousands of votes. And if you add up thousands of votes in 30 different legislative districts across the state from the Republican Party, that could flip the election to Katie right there.
Last question, about a minute and a half left for each of you. What should each of the candidates be doing between now and Election Day to, you know, bring it home?
I think Katie Hobbs should be getting out there doing smaller events all across the state. That's what she's good at. She's not a big rally person. Get out there, meet small business owners, meet those people on the ground and talk to them. That's what she's very good at.
Yeah, if I'm Lake, what I'm doing is I'm beating the immigration drum. I am pointing the finger at Biden. I'm pointing the finger at this administration. It's your fault. It's their fault. It is their fault. And on the economy, I'd want to wrestle that issue over there to be there. If you're Hobbs, my take would be I'd want to focus on protecting democracy. Here you have a candidate in Lake that wants to have the legislature overturn elections, take away your right to early vote. I'm here to constitutionally protect your right to vote. They want to take it away.
You guys are great. I always appreciate the conversation. I hope we can do this again, because it seems like there's fireworks every time we're talking about something, and you guys are great at it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate the time.
All right, we'll be back here in a moment on Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. I want to thank all of our guests, starting with our strategists, both Chuck Coughlin and Chad Campbell. And of course, a thank you to Tom Collins, the Executive Director of the Citizens Clean Election Commission, for all of the insight. Head over to aztv.com/vote to find links to voter resources, such as how to request a mail-in ballot. And remember, the last day to request a ballot by mail is October 28th. Next week on the show, the publication Arizona Agenda will be breaking down what's happening with the congressional and legislative district races. Should be a great show next week. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next time on Before You Vote.